So before you even log on, especially if you're doing virtual appointments, before you even meet your therapist, the first thing that I would suggest is to find a quiet space, whether you're sitting in your car because you're on your lunch break or in your home where you can talk as openly and freely as possible. Even though it is a virtual session, the appointments and confidentiality will still apply. One thing that we are not allowed to do as therapists, we are not allowed to have a session when a client is driving or even just being a passenger in the car because it can serve as a distraction, especially with the conversation, the topic, or anything that we're discussing. And we don't want to be liable if you get in a car accident or something goes wrong. So we really want to make sure if you have to sit in your car, it's not, running or you're not driving. Another thing is make sure you're not cooking or, doing some other errands around the house, or even at the store. And the reason why we think that is important is because this is your time to focus on yourself and your emotional well-being. And we don't want anything around you that will distract you or also break the realms of confidentiality in your therapy appointment. Another thing is that you want to make sure that you're dressed appropriately for session. That's just out of respect for yourself and for your therapist as well. Because this is a professional setting, we want to make sure that we are appropriate in different facets for ourselves. So those are some tips and some things that you can do even prior to your first appointment with your therapist. Now, if you're face to face with your therapist, of course, you'll probably physically be showing up to the office. There may be some paperwork that you would have to fill out. But also one thing that you want to do is limit the number of guests. If there's some families coming, because we want the session to be really focused on the client that's on our calendar for today without many distractions. So that would be definitely important for our face-to-face clients as well. So you're meeting your therapist, whether it's face-to-face or virtual. So the first session will be a little bit different than the rest of your many sessions afterwards. The first session, of course, your therapist will address confidentiality, things outside or inside that we're not allowed to discuss, or if we need to break confidentiality because we feel that you're going to be harmful to yourself or to someone else. Of course, if there's some child abuse issues, then of course we are mandated by state law that we have to report that information as well. If there is a subpoena, we will discuss that with you and just kind of discuss our options after that. So we'll talk about confidentiality. We will also kind of do an assessment, and an assessment is where we gather your basic demographic information, background information about yourself, your family, and kind of give us as a therapist a full overview about who you are, the family, and the culture that you come from, so we can make a full assessment and also talk about what's bringing you to therapy. And I think this is the key because this allows for you to be open and transparent with your therapist in a very safe place where you can talk about the things that your strengths, your weakness, things that you want to work on, maybe things that your family and friends have suggested that you work on in therapy as well. And then we do have people sometimes that come to therapy that don't necessarily have a concrete example or goals that they've set. A lot of times people feel that if I don't have anxiety or if I don't have depression or some type of traumatic event that I've been through, either in the past or currently, then therapy is really not a need for me. And it's actually the complete opposite. I always tell my clients, there's nothing that you don't have to have anything going on wrong in order for you to come to therapy. We have clients that come to us about parenting needs, career explorations, how to apply boundaries in their lives. So even if you just want to come and talk about, what's going on with your life today, that's definitely an option. So you don't necessarily have to have anything going wrong in order to be a client or have a therapist. Um, Another thing for people that have never been to therapy before, this is your first time, you maybe want to address any concerns or ask your therapist about what this process will look like for me, her style, or their style. I apologize, or just address any maybe myths. I think a lot of people think you have to lay on a couch. That's not true. Or different things that you may have seen in social media or in a movie that are completely false. And you just kind of want to address any concerns before you dive into your personal information. Now, when moving forward in your therapy process, you definitely want to always check in with your therapist, talk about, any goals, measurable outcomes, resources, what to do outside of the therapy room as well. Because even after your first session, the real work then begins. You've talked about with your therapist what your goals are, what we're going to be addressing in therapy, but then the real work applies after you leave the therapy room. That's when you're able to have the resources, the skills, and the tools that you need so you can see growth and change outside of the therapy room. And then you can come back to your therapist and say, hey, this isn't working, or this is working for me. I've noticed these are the areas that I am improving. I'm getting better with my communication with coworkers, my family and friends. And I think that's important to even discuss that with your therapist, because a lot of times people will say, well, I didn't know what to expect, or I didn't know if the conversation of my therapist was going to ask me a lot of questions, or do I have to come, with questions prepared? And it can actually be either way. There's no right or wrong. There's no black and white concrete way that your session should go. You're in charge. Your therapist will kind of maybe ask a few questions to get the ball rolling. But this is the one time where you can be you and really focus on your emotional well-being, as I said earlier, so you can see growth and change outside of the therapy office. So let's say you've done about maybe 1 to maybe 5 sessions with your therapist. That's the time that it takes to build that safety and that trust. And you say, you know what, this week, I don't want to go to therapy because I feel my anxiety has lessened. I'm not as depressed and I don't want to go. And I think that's when you should actually still go to therapy, because even though things are going right in your life, you still want to focus on the good. If we can wallow in the negativity, let's also focus on how did I get to this good place, but also how do I maintain it and how do I stay there? And let's enjoy the fruit or how you've worked through certain things as well. So those are some things that you can do on how to prepare for your session before therapy, what's going to happen in that first appointment, and maybe a few sessions after that. Okay.
So, question, something as renovations to a house and
Mm-hmm.
moving, that could
Yes.
be something that they could come to talk to you about.
There is no issue, small or big, that cannot be addressed in therapy.
Great.
So definitely come and just process some things if it's that, or if it's I'm just stressed, or I want to discover a new hobby for myself. Mm-hmm.
Great.
Yes.
So, thank you for being here in this segment. And everyone,
Thank
stay
you.
tuned for the next Safe Space. And if you would like to book an appointment with Sherilyn for face to face or virtual, because she does that too, you can call us at 281-824-1480 or go to www.mychn.org. Once again, we take all insurances, Medicare, Medicaid, private, CHIP, everything. Thank you, and stay tuned for next week, Safe Space. Thank you for being here, Sherlyn.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye bye.